What's up everyone, Ethan Nader here with Horizon Hobby, and today I've got the E-flite Conscendo 2 meter, and guys, I've been having a lot of fun with this airplane, but it's time to make it even more fun with the addition of full span ailerons and crow, and that's very easy to do so thanks to the availability of the Spektrum Smart Transmitter file for the advanced configuration of the Conscendo 2 meter, and all you need in order to load that receiver and transmitter file onto the receiver of the Conscendo 2 meter is the Spektrum Programming Cable and the computer running the Spektrum Programmer app. If you don't have access to those things and you have a Spektrum NX transmitter or IX transmitter, I'll also show you a manual transmitter and receiver setup for the Conscendo 2 meter. So either way, you can enjoy full span ailerons and crow and just enjoy the Conscendo 2 meter at its full potential. But without further ado, the first step, we do need to rewire the servos on the receiver of the Conscendo 2 meter BNF Basic. So we're going to get into that first, then we'll get into the first method of loading the smart transmitter file onto the receiver, and then lastly I will show you just a manual setup if you want to use your Spektrum transmitter. But yeah, without further ado guys, let's get on into this video. With the Conscendo 2 meter upside down, we can remove this receiver compartment hatch, so then we have easy access to the receiver where we'll need to do a little rewiring. First, disconnect the Y harness from port 6 of the receiver and disconnect each flap servo from the Y harness. We'll then do the same with port 2 where we'll remove the Y harness and disconnect each aileron servo from it. Now, using the diagram provided in the advanced configuration instructions, we can plug the servo into their respective ports. A good way to determine which servo is which is through a servo tester like the Spektrum XBC200. Here I am plugging in a servo connector and seeing which servo on the wing is moving. After identifying the right aileron servo, I can plug it into port 2 on the receiver. I'll repeat this process for the remaining servos. The left flap plugs into port 5, the left aileron plugs into port 6, and the right flap plugs into port 7. Port 8 is left open and available for the optional night LED set. Now that the rewiring is complete, we can put the receiver compartment hatch back on. Next up, I recommend taking the propeller blades off because the Conscendo will be powered on in the next few steps while we put the new model file onto the receiver. Okay, so here we need to load the receiver model file onto the Conscendo 2 meters receiver, and the easiest way to find the receiver file is starting here at the Conscendo 2 meters product page on horizonhobby.com. Scrolling down, we can click on Parts and Support, where we can then find and click on the Advanced Configuration Instructions. This will take us to the instructions that will give us a transmitter setup switch layout as well as step-by-step instructions on how to manually configure Spektrum NX, IX, and DX transmitters for advanced configuration. Also at the bottom there are instructions for the receiver and servo connection reconfiguration that we did earlier. But for now we want to click this link here where it'll take us to the preset receiver model file that includes the smart transmitter file. This is where we can download this file onto our computer. At this point, we can open the Spektrum Programmer app, and here we can select the file that we just downloaded and drag it into the app. As you can see, we now have that file on the Spektrum Programmer app. Next, we need to plug the programming cable into our computer and connect the other end into the programming port of the receiver. The easiest way to do so is to plug the programming cable into the extension running up into the battery compartment. Next, power on the Conscendo 2 meter. Note that you must have the programming cable connected before powering on the aircraft. Once the aircraft and receiver are powered on, you should get a model mismatch window pop up in the Programmer app. Click on Show More, and here we can highlight the Conscendo 2 meters preset model file that we just placed into the Programmer app. Once it's highlighted, we can click Use Computer Settings. The Programmer app will now load the preset model file containing the Advanced Configuration Smart Transmitter file onto the Conscendo. Once it's complete, you can power off the Conscendo and disconnect the programming cable from the receiver. With the Conscendo 2 meter powered up and in bind mode, the only thing that we have to do on the transmitter side is create a blank model. Now that we have a blank acro model, we can select the scroll wheel again and scroll down to bind. Selecting bind, we can scroll over to yes, select yes, and then select bind one more time. And as you can see, the Conscendo 2 meter is now bound to the NX8 Plus. And as you can see, the servos are going to be a little bit wonky because we have not selected the right servo settings, but we're not going to have to do that. All we have to do is load in the smart transmitter file that's going to pop up here in a second. So here is the smart transmitter file for the advanced configuration of the Conscendo 2 meter. Select load and then select confirm. And it's that easy, everyone. As you can see here, we have the smart transmitter file loaded. All of our servo settings are correct. So here we have right aileron, left aileron, up elevator, down elevator, right rudder, left rudder. We also have safe on and then safe off here. And what's really cool now is with that advanced transmitter configuration, if we go on switch E, if we flip to position 1, we now have full span ailerons, and this is really cool. Position 2, we have crow mode, which is tied to the throttle. So if we want, we can dump the flaps on our landing. We have that crow mode to slow us down. And then if we want to power out, we just go full throttle. Those flaps will help us pitch up and we can clean up our configuration. So yeah, it's just that easy, guys. And just like that, everyone, the 2 meter Conscendo is now ready to be flown with its advanced setup. You got full span ailerons, you got crow, and it is a blast. And that's the easiest way to do so with the smart transmitter file and the computer. Just loading in that advanced setup into the Spektrum programmer, and as you can see, we now have that advanced setup in the receiver. It gave us the smart transmitter file, and it was just that easy, everyone. This next way is good if you might not have a computer handy and you just want to manually do everything and set up the Conscendo. So we're gonna walk through how to manually set up the advanced transmitter and receiver setup for the Conscendo 2 meter. Now moving on to the second method, we need to manually configure the transmitter for the Conscendo 2 meter. First, we can create a blank acro model. Now that we've done that and have selected the new model, scroll down to Model Name and press the scroll wheel to select it. Here we can name the model. Once we're done naming the model, we can go back to the System Setup menu and scroll down to Aircraft Type and select it. Change the wing type to 2 aileron, 2 flaps. Once we've done this, we can go back to the system setup. Now scroll down and select Channel Assign. Here we want to scroll down to Channel 10 and confirm that the channel port is A10, the output is aux 10, and the input is switch B. This will be our flight mode switch. Now we can go back to the main screen and press the scroll wheel to enter the function list. Scroll down to Rates and Expo and select it. Here's where you can set your rates and expo to your liking. I'm going to set it up per the manual, which are the recommended starting values and switches. You can choose to set your dual rates and expo values for the ailerons, elevator, and rudder all on one switch, or assign each control surface to different switches. Personally, I like to assign my ailerons, elevator, and rudder all to one switch, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to follow the manual and assign my ailerons to switch F, elevators to switch C, and rudder to switch G. Once finished setting up your dual rates and expo, you can go back to the function list, scroll to throttle cut and select it. All we have to do here is select where it says switch and flip the H switch for it to select that switch. Press the scroll wheel to lock it in and you are done. Going back to the function list, scroll down to flap system and select it. We can select the switch to the D switch and lock it in. Now scroll through each flap position. Position 0 will remain unchanged, but for position 1, change the flap position to -50 and elevator position to 20. Next, scroll to position 2 and change the flap position to -100 and the elevator position to 33. Now scroll down to speed and change it from normal to 2 seconds. Once these values are set, go back to the function list. Back at the function list, scroll to Servo Setup and select it. Once in Servo Setup, select where it says Travel and scroll to Reverse. Press the scroll wheel on Reverse, and here we will want to reverse the right aileron and the left aileron. Once the right and left ailerons are reversed, scroll back to Reverse up here and select it. Scroll over to Absolute Travel and press the scroll wheel to select it, then scroll over to right aileron. Move the stick to the right and press the scroll wheel to adjust the down position. Change 4096 to 3419 and press the scroll wheel to lock it in. Next, scroll to the left aileron and change the down position from 1 to 679. Once that's done, scroll over to right flap and change the down position from 1 to 679. And lastly, scroll over to left flap and change the down position from 1 to 679. Once you've changed the absolute travel for your flaps and aileron servos, go back to the function list. Back at the function list, scroll to Mixing and select it. In the Mixing, scroll to Mix 1 and select it. Select Normal and change the primary servo to aileron and the secondary to left flap. Change both rates to 100% and assign the mix to switch E. This mix is for full span ailerons, and as you can see, the mix is only active when the switch E is in position 1. Going back to the mix list, scroll down and select Mix 2. Select Normal and change the primary servo to throttle and the secondary servo to left aileron. Next, assign the mix to switch E and flip switch E to position 2 and leave it there while you are adjusting the mix. This is so that the mix will be active in curve 2. Once you've done this, scroll up to the rate. Leave the first rate percentage at 0 and change the second rate percentage to -70. This is going to be your crow mix and is only active when switch E is in position 2. When switch E is in position 0, both the full span aileron and crow mixes are off. Once finished with the mix setup, the transmitter configuration is now complete. With the Conscendo 2 meter powered up and the receiver in bind mode, we can now bind the Conscendo 2 meter to our Spektrum NX8. So we'll scroll down and select bind. And as you can see, we now have our NX8 Plus bound to the Conscendo 2 meter. It's going to auto-configure itself for the telemetry, and then it's going to ask us if we want to load in the smart transmitter file. And because we are doing a manual Spektrum transmitter setup, or we have already done that, we want to skip. And we will confirm here. Now that we've skipped the option to load the smart transmitter file and we are at the main menu, we can select the scroll wheel and scroll down to forward programming. Now that we're in forward programming, we can scroll down to other settings and then we can scroll down to factory reset and we can select apply. And now the receiver is going to go back into bind mode and we can click to bind. And we'll select bind one more time. And as you can see, when we bound the Conscendo, we have our throttle stick at the low position and throttle cut is also on. With the Conscendo 2 meter powered on and connected to the transmitter, we can now enter forward programming to manually set up AS3X Plus and safe select. Going to the function list, scroll down to forward programming and select it. At the main menu, select gyro settings, first time setup, and here it's going to ask us to verify that our transmitter settings are correct. Since we manually configured the transmitter, we can select next. And this next screen is just reminding us that any changes to these settings will require an initial AS3X Plus setup again. Select next again, and this is where it wants us to note the receiver's orientation. If you have the BNF Basic version of the Conscendo 2 meter and have not messed with the receiver orientation, you can select Set Orientation manually, scroll to Orientation 3, which depicts the receiver mounted upside down with the servo ports facing towards the tail. Select Orientation 3 and continue. For gain channel select, you can just select Apply. Once the receiver has rebooted, select Return to Forward Programming. Back at the main menu, go to gyro settings and select First Time Safe Setup. Select Flight Mode Channel, and here is where we'll assign it to aux10, which we have already tied to switch B during the transmitter setup. Select Next and then press Continue. Here we can confirm that changing the positions of switch B changes our flight modes, and after verifying that, we can select Next. Here it is telling us that our safe gains need to be adjusted, which we'll do in a minute. For now, just select Next. Here in the attitude trim, we can leave roll at 0 and change pitch to -3, then select Next. Here we will want to make safe active in flight mode 1, which is switch B position 0. Once you have verified you're in flight mode 1, select safe and change it to self-level/angle demand. For your angle limits, change roll right and roll left to 83, and change the pitch down and pitch up to 40. Once this is complete, select Next and then Apply. The receiver will now reboot. Now press Return to Forward Programming. Go back into gyro settings and select AS3X settings and go into AS3X gains. Here we want to change the gain values so that they are all the same on all 3 flight modes. Starting in flight mode 1, change the roll gain to 25%, the pitch gain to 65%, and the yaw gain to 73%. Use switch B to change to flight modes 2 and 3, and again you'll change the roll to 25%, pitch to 65%, and yaw to 73% for flight modes 2 and 3. Once you've confirmed the gain values are identical on all 3 flight modes, go back to AS3X settings. Scroll down to Fixed/Adjustable Gain and select it. For all 3 flight modes, change the AS3X gains for roll, pitch, and yaw to fixed. Once you've confirmed that all the gains are fixed, go back to AS3X settings. Select Next and scroll to AS3X throttle arm. Select it and change to active. Once you've changed it, you can go back to AS3X settings and then back again to the gyro settings. Scroll down to Safe Settings and select it. Then select Safe Gains. For flight mode 1, change the roll gain to 52% and the pitch gain to 49%. Now go back to Safe Settings and select back again to go to gyro settings. Go to System Setup and scroll down to Safe/Panic Mode Setup. Then select Throttle to Pitch. For low throttle to pitch, keep the threshold at 30 and change the angle to -5. And for high throttle to pitch, keep the threshold at 70 and change the angle to 8. Now go back to Safe/Panic Mode Setup and scroll down to Safe Failsafe Flight Mode. Select it and assign it to Flight Mode 1, then scroll down and select Failsafe Angles. Change your roll angle to -20 and pitch angle to 10. Now if the Conscendo enters failsafe, it will automatically go into safe mode with a bit of a bank angle to help it orbit. Once you've done this, you can go back to Safe/Panic Mode Setup and go back again to the System Setup. Scroll down to Hand Launch Assist and select it. Change the Hand Launch Assist flight mode to Flight Mode 1. Next, change the threshold Gs to 0.5, keep the threshold throttle at 70%, change the duration to 4 seconds, and change the pitch offset to 15 degrees. Once you've done this, the AS3X Plus and Safe setup is now complete. You can now exit forward programming and go back to the main screen. And once again, the 2-meter Conscendo is ready to be enjoyed at its full potential. Guys, we got the full spin ailerons. We got crow mode if we want. Again, it's tied into the throttle. Super, super fun airplane, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully this video helped you out. Happy flying.